Hey YouTube. Well, I thought I'd do a story time today. It's extremely overcast in San Francisco, so I'm going to try this ring light that I made such a big deal out of getting last month. So I made a big deal out of getting a ring light that I haven't had it on since, but I'm going to try it today. So the issue is, I put my glasses on like that. I can see you, but you see this big thing in my glasses. So I think when I'm reading like this, I'll be okay. And let me go take them off and expose myself. Anyway, so I want to talk about this thing. All my life, when I was a kid, I had two main fears, and I figured if I didn't cross those lines, I would be okay. You know, there was two things. One thing, I never wanted to be a junkie. I never wanted to use heroin. Those were the worst stories I ever saw. The most scary things. I think I must have suspected that I had the potential of getting involved in drugs. But I'm talking about when I was a little kid, before I even did any drugs. But that was like the lowest you could go, was to be a junkie, right? And the other thing was to go to prison. I thought that would be like something I wouldn't recover from, because I've seen the prison movies, and I thought it would not be a good thing on a gay person to be in a men's prison. So I'm gonna read a little bit of my little bit from Meth Monster again. I know I did this last week or something. Anyways, another story. So these are true stories. This is what actually happened. One thing I said about my nonfiction book, Meth Monster, I told the truth as best I could. I didn't embellish at all. There's no dramatization there. So I'm gonna read a little bit of the book, and then I want to talk about my experience of ended up in prison, and I ended up there many times. Okay, so I'm at page 65 of Meth Monster. Meth Monster is a short book. It's only like 100 and some pages, 140 pages, so 130 pages. So this is when I got in trouble with drugs. My partner is dying of AIDS. I get arrested in the house when he's on his deathbed for violation of probation. I was on probation for crystal meth, possession of crystal meth. Okay, so this is when right after they arrested me. I had done a lot of time in jail, but I always got little short stays in jail or probation. Well, I broke the probation, and here's where I find myself. Okay, so when I made it to court, I was hoping beyond hope that the judge would just give me a slap on the wrist for trespassing. There was a vacant apartment in our apartment building, and people moved out, and I went in there scavenging to see if I could find something to sell for dope. Okay, and continue my probation. I wanted so desperately to get back to Jimmy's bedside where I belonged, but that was not to be. I had somehow managed to slip and slide around the city and county jail system for years. It seems like every time I went before a judge, I got a slap on the wrist and a threat of prison time if I came back. Well, the time for idle threats and short stays in the county jail had come and gone. This time, when I went before the judge, he said 3 years in the state penitentiary. Since I had been a thief in one capacity or other, off and on since I was a child, prison had always been a very real fear for me. I think that all people who make their living on the wrong side of the law dread the coming of this day. That was the thing. After a while, everybody I knew either died, went crazy, or went to prison. And as if losing Jimmy and being sent upstate for 3 years wasn't enough, I had just tested positive for HIV. In 1991, testing positive did not mean the same thing as it does today. I had every reason to believe that I just might not make it out of prison. According to my lab tests, I had been positive for quite some time. Nevertheless, even more terrifying than the thought of dying in prison was the thought of living there as a gay man. I had seen all of the same movies you probably have. If these animals were willing to rape a straight man, I thought, what in the hell would they do to me? When I arrived at San Quentin State Prison, you could have cut my fear and anxiety with a knife. Wouldn't you know, I would be sent to a place all the way at the other end of California. Just my luck. The one thing I was counting on to make my stay there tolerable was the fact that I knew so many people who were already doing time. Well, that was in Southern California. San Quentin sat just north of San Francisco, where I didn't know a living soul. As it turns out, this is one time that being HIV positive actually worked in my favor. Positive inmates were segregated into a huge 100-man dormitory. I'm sure if anybody were paying attention, they would have seen the tension drain from my face when I identified that over half of the people there were gay. Of course, many there would be many problems and issues to come up over the next 2 years, but at least my homosexuality wouldn't be one of them. From what I understand, Jimmy died in the hospice around the same time I entered the gates of San Quentin. I guess it was better this way. At least he got the care he needed and was able to pass away with a degree of dignity. Okay, so Jimmy was my partner, obviously. He was dying. This is the last time I saw him. He was very sick, and the cops came and got me. So he died soon after I made it all the way to prison. Okay, I had been sentenced to 3 years, but only had to do about 20 months. When they called me for release in February of 1993, I had every intention of returning to Los Angeles and picking up where I had left off. I was actually kind of proud of myself for being able to complete a term at San Quentin. Somehow this made me feel more masculine and definitely more streetwise. I could hardly wait to get back to the old crowd with all of my lies and embellishments about prison life. But this was not to be. Inmates being released from a California prison are generally given $200 gate money. This was to ensure this is so that you don't hit the street completely broke and desperate. As I was getting dressed in the release area, I was informed that since I was from LA, I would only be getting 100. This was to ensure that I did in fact return to Los Angeles. I could pick the rest up from my parole officer. Well, that may have been their intention, and I'll even concede that to a rational person it would probably make sense. But I was not a rational person. I was a drug addict, and as far as I was concerned, 20 months was long enough time between hits. I was not about to spend every dime I had on the bus ticket back to LA. Right there in that holding cell, while waiting to be released, I hatched another plan. To this very day, I've never returned to Los Angeles. As strange as it may sound, I was not nearly as excited about getting out of prison as I was about getting that needle back in my arm. Okay, so coincidentally, this story picks up when I did a video last week, I was talking about arriving in San Francisco. Well, this is what happened right before that time. Just a coincidence. I just picked it at random. Anyway, so I got in trouble in LA, and I was sent up here. Is the light okay? I was sent up here. Oh, actually, let me give you some advice. If you're thinking about getting on these lights, get your camera first. So what I did was after I got the ring light, damn near $200 including the stand, I got also at the same time a webcam. And the webcam is doing a better job than the old webcam. So I really don't need the light because it's overcast as hell right now. But I think I can do this without the light. So I ain't got to take my glasses off and be blind. Let me see. Okay. Let's not get stuck there, shall we? All right. So I was a petty thief in LA. Got involved in dope. Ended up sent up here to San Quentin State Prison. Now, of course, the name San Quentin was scary for me. I mean, I was a gay boy who basically only lived in West Hollywood, California. I rarely even went around straight people at that point in my life. LA is huge. This is all sectioned off to all, dozens of little towns, little cities, and each part has its own downtown area. So it's like it's a metropolis. So I was kind of naive about about being around regular people, straight people, certainly not prison type straight people. So I was terrified when I heard the name San Quentin because I had heard the name San Quentin for years, one of the oldest prisons in the United States. So you always hear about Sing Sing, San Quentin, Folsom. I was intimidated and I had no control whatsoever. So when I arrived at San Quentin, I tell you, I was very nervous. I remember, let me tell you a quick story. I remember when I hit the yard, there's nothing to do in prison. All you could do is either watch television with other inmates in this little area. We were like, it used to be a gym. San Quentin used to have a boxing gym, and it was part of their program there, right? So when HIV came along, they figured they had to separate the HIV people from the regular population because it was also epidemic in the prison system. So they felt like they had to keep us separated. So the HIV people were put into the old gym. Okay, so it had like a common area, and the beds were just out in the open. I think it's about 200 people. And they weren't all gay people either. I mean, HIV unit, but there were a lot of drug addicts in there, so it was about half and half, half gay, half straight. But at least gay wasn't an issue there, so I felt kind of good about that. But when I came out to the regular yard, I asked this dude, brother, he was coming off the weight pal, and I said, "Oh, excuse me," I didn't even sound like a little punk. Anyway, I said, I need to find the library. I need to get a book, something to read, because when you watch television there, you had to watch it with this big group, so whoever was toughest was going to dominate the TV. It's not like picking what you want to watch. Anyway, I said, I need to find a library. He said to me, and I'll never forget it. He said to me, I need these things played with. I was not used to be spoken to in that way because I didn't tell anybody I was gay, but I like to think that it was because I was housed in the gym that he figured that out. Anyway, so being an HIV person, we had this huge gymnasium who was separated pretty much from the regular population. Although we did eat in the same places and we had the same yards, kind of thing, you know. So it's not nearly as scary as I thought it would be. I thought I would be, challenged constantly. I only got in a fight one time in prison. A lot of times when you tell people on the street, you say, "Oh, I went to prison 10 times." 10 times in 10 years. Let me explain what that is. Okay, after you go to prison for the first time, like in my situation, it was a long trail to get to prison because they kept letting me go and threatening me and letting me go and threatening me, and then eventually they put me on probation. Condition of your probation: if you don't report, you're going to prison. And so a lot of times on the street, when you tell people I've been in prison that many times, they say, "Oh, you must have been somebody's bitch," or they get real quiet. They go, and they say anything about a prison, they'll say, excuse me, I'm sorry. They assume that it's some horrible experience, right? So, but it wasn't like that. Uh, what else about uh, the prison experience? So it's almost like being in the gay community. We had, queens there. In prison, you like a lot of the people. Sometimes you see these queens on the street are people who are very feminine, who are they dress, they blur the line around clothing. They wear lipstick, makeup, stuff like that. Well, on the street, you might figure, well, who would want to be with you? Ooh, you got to be more masculine and all that kind of stuff. In prison, it was like royalty, right? Because the straight guys, particularly the lifers, they want somebody to just remind them of a girl. So the more effeminate you were, the more closer to a girl you were, the more popular you were. So when we got there to the gym, they weren't interested in me. I was a masculine dude. I mean, I'm just average gay boy, and then particularly masculine about me. But for them, they want you to cut the mustache off and then you arch your eyebrows. And a lot of gay boys did that. A lot of them, because it was like a kid in a what do you used to call it? A punk in a pickle factory. They became very popular just by doing a little work on the eyebrows and wrapping the shirts around and all that. So a lot of gay boys became like little prison punks. That was the thing. If you were a queen, it was really like, I mean, if you got up in drag and so forth, because if you were a transgender woman, you would go to a woman's prison. But if you were, you still had all your stuff. You was to a men's prison, and a lot of them girls kept coming in and out of there. I said, well, "Girl, you got it better here than you got on the street as far as attention from men, because they wanted masculine men." Anyway, so I was sitting there. I was supposed to do the 3 years. I was sentenced to 3 years. That would add to my level of frustration. But I did 20 months in there. The last time I talked about getting out, but I didn't talk about what it was like being in there. And so I didn't have any lover relationships there, any trade. I'm not attracted to straight men. I'm not attracted to hyper masculine men. That's not my thing. I like gay boys. I mean, I like they ain't gotta be fish or anything, but boys like myself is what my type was, and I do like other races also. So that's not what most of the boys were doing. It was mostly gay boys being partnered with these real masculine kind of lifers. I mean, you're a lifer, you're not getting out. You go there, and they go. I mean, they go there where they're their husband, they're kissing on the mouth, on the yard, and all that kind of stuff. Uh, so I just didn't. It wasn't my thing. If I were to just find another gay boy, and it wasn't exclusively one race or the other, but just different kind of people. I would be considered what they called a bulldagger because I was gay and I was with another gay guy. That's something you rarely ever saw, and if you did, it was on QT. So we were all in the gym. I did go there several times. So the thing is, after I skipped something. After they get you on parole, you basically are property of the state. So even when you get out on parole, they say you were paroled, you have was it 2 or 3 year tail? 3 year tail. Yeah, 3 years you get out. You have 3 years probation, right? Since I was a dope fiend and I was in the wrong city, I never reported. So it was very easy to violate me because anytime I was stopped by the cops, I was in violation of parole. So that's why I was in and out like 10 times in 10 years. That's not an exaggeration. It's actually what it was. Uh, it seemed to work better in my favor in a way because a, a violation, you get a year is the maximum. And since it wasn't a violent crime, you would get halftime. So about 7 months a year, I would just go to jail. I just knew that was just going to happen because as soon as they caught me, even if I didn't have any dope, I was going back for a violation. And since I generally did have dope, I was always guilty. I always ended up getting the maximum. So 7 months a year. Okay. San Quentin is a reception center. I assume that it's still that way. It's a reception center. So that's why I would say I went back to San Quentin 10 times because you would go there first when you got busted. I did two terms in San Quentin on the main line there, but some other times I'll be sent to other prisons, but still had to go to San Quentin for reception. So you'd be in there 3 or 4 months before they find out where they're going to put you. Well, if you're only doing 7 months, by the time you get to a main line, you've already did half your time. So anyway, I went to several prisons. What it was like inside, I didn't get a boyfriend. And I think a lot of the reason I didn't get a boyfriend because there was some good-looking black dudes. Because you couldn't, there was no race mixing. That was out. If you were black, you had to be with another black person. Now, even though most of the guys in prison are not gay, or I mean, most of them are not gay. They're straight. Even the ones who did not fuck around were very concerned about who you were with. So there was no race mixing in there. There was no. They didn't even put a black and a white person in the same cell together on the main line because if you got in a fight with your lover, could turn into a race fight. So they didn't mix. So there were a few gay boys that I thought were cute, black guys. I could be with them, I'd be okay. But they said, well, hell, I can get all this straight trade. What the fuck would you for? So I didn't come across that. I did make a couple of very good friends there. Because remember now, I'm from LA, so coming to Quentin, I knew absolutely nobody. There were probably two people. No, ignore that. There were probably two people that I even knew from LA in Quentin at the time. I wish my phone is way over there. Please forgive me. Okay, so yeah, so I had some of these friends that even went into my sobriety after I got off dope. Anyway, so I was meeting a whole new crowd. That's what I was saying. I think that's what I was saying. Not just because they were in prison, but just because I was up north and I was from the south. Okay. So anyway, so prison wasn't that horrible. I'm not trying to encourage anybody to go to prison. It's someplace you do not want to go. But I think, particularly because of the HIV thing, it was a lot better than it could have been. Because if I wasn't HIV, if I was just gay, I would be on the main line. And there were some girls on the main line. There were some gay boys on main line who lived, and a lot of times they lived with their boyfriends, whatever. But now they were thrust into crowds where they were the only gay person maybe on the whole row. Awkward, very awkward. They had to hook up with somebody and be with that person, or life could be tough with them. Because the thing about a prison is, if you were in there for drunk driving, let's say you got 2 or 3 drunk drivings, and they end up sending you in prison, or like me, just a shoplifter or booster, doesn't make any difference there. The person in your cell could be doing a double life sentence. You could be in there with murder easily. In fact, that happened to me in another prison, CMC, but I'm not going to go into all the escapades. But yeah, so you're all mixed together in there. Nobody knows what people are in there for. And some of them have done heinous crimes, so they won't even tell you what they're in there for. It is bad etiquette to be asking somebody what they're in for. Unless they volunteer you to tell that, you know. And so, I don't know the end of this story, because the way it ended was me ended up in San Francisco. So I never went back to LA. I was sitting here, I wasn't a slave, I was a convict. But it's a very similar type of experience. I was in a city where I never chose to be. I was brought here. Yeah. So unfortunately, most of those guys that were in the gym with me are gone now. Most of them have died. They've died because pretty much all of us were drug addicts. Drugs is the main thing. So when we got out, we went back to doing drugs. The ones who were in and out like me, we did a little better because we were basically always in jail, only on the street 3 or 4 months a year. So we kept getting healthy again, getting healthy again. If you were on the streets and you just stayed on the streets, it was just down, 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 because your HIV, and it's almost impossible to keep up with an HIV regimen if you're getting high. You can't even remember to wash your face or comb your hair, like that. So anyway, at some point in the jail, people were hollering out the window. Uh, there was these new drugs. There were these new drugs, and people were living. Then we didn't know that they were living for a long time. We just said, "Oh, this could extend your life 5 years." Well, that's been 15 years ago. I'm more healthy than when I went in. So things changed, but I believe that going in and out of prison saved my life, because if I were on the streets getting high every day for those years, I wouldn't have survived it. And I just see it all around me, because I know all the people who continue to do it, they didn't survive it. So anyway, so that's my prison story for today. I wish I had some hateful love stories for you, because I know gay folks love those prison fantasies, because every time you turn on one of those old videos, they had the little plastic bars and everything, you my bitch kind of thing. So uh, it wasn't like that for me. Thank God. And it worked out all right. I mean, I was around long enough to be around for these pills. When my partner died, when I went in, my partner died. Well, those guys were dying like 3 years, and there was no drugs. There was nothing. So in that way, I'm blessed. Okay, that's a prison story. I'm gonna play it back and see how it sounds. If it sounds all right, I'm gonna post it. If not, I'll talk to you about something else tomorrow. Later.